Welcome to the Parks and Cons SoCal Parks Talk, where we bring you news from the Southern California theme park scene and take you to the heart of some of those parks. I'm Carmel, and this is my co-host Sean.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Park Talk. We're happy to be here today talking about some fun topics. We're actually going to change things up this week. We're going to have 2 Magnification segments. We'll talk about that later, and we'll be skipping the park tips this time. We'll talk about that as we get to it, though. But we're shooting out here. We're at WonderCon covering it for the weekend. Really busy with that. But this week it's all about Park Talk, and so we are here to talk about it. So first up, we have a new segment we call Park Hop. And Park Hop is where we pick 3 or 4 pieces of news that have come out in the Southern California theme park scene that are of great interest to us, and we talk about them, give a little bit of analysis. It's not a full comprehensive list of all the news that's been announced, just some of the things that most catch our attention. So always feel free to jump in the comment section of this show. Let us know if there's news bits that you think we should talk about, and that way we can consider them for future topics. And it's just good to know what you guys are interested in case it differs from some of the things that catch our attention as we watch the Southern California scene. So what's up first in our news?
Okay, well, over at the Disney Parks blog, they've announced the massive menu for the upcoming California Adventure Food and Wine Festival. It's a lot of information. What's some of the important stuff?
Well, so what we know now is they're going to divide up. There's going to be 8 marketplace areas that kind of all emphasize food and drink in the spring of California. So that's really where the focus of it is. Different, obviously, than the Epcot Food and Wine Festival, which is much more focusing internationally. Those areas in the DCA marketplaces will be called LA Style, The Vineyard, Wine Country, Viva Fresca, Gold Rush, The Brew House, The Farm, and By the Bay. And so in each of those areas you'll find all sorts of different treats there. On the parks blog, somebody had asked about the price of these items, and they said that they'll range around that $5 to $8 mark, and drinks will be between $5 to $15 depending on what you're getting there. So that's really very good price for Disney pricing. Now we don't know what the size of the portions will be. Obviously it's going to be more of kind of a sampler type of a setup anyway. So the idea of a festival like this is obviously to try a lot of different treats, eats, and drinks there. So looks like a fun list of things. Also, in addition to that, Carthay Circle, Cochina, Cucamonga, Lucky Fortune, they'll all have items as well. And one of the things that they said is those items, special items at the restaurants or those set places outside the marketplace will be available during the week. Because actually one of my great fears about the DCA Food and Wine Festival is that it's going to be just about impossible to actually get any food or wine because of the massive lines. And we all know the craziness of the Disney parks any time of year, let alone spring break on the weekends. It seems like it's going to be pretty fierce. It's going to drive big crowds there, and so I'm concerned whether we'll be able to get to the front of any of the lines or dedicate the time to get these meals. But hopefully they've got a good plan there in terms of getting food and drink out quickly. But I really do wish that this would have just been all of April rather than just picking the weekends to run it. So that said, we'll see. I'm excited to check it out. It's interesting to see. We've talked about it on this show many times before. I think we're always fans of parks trying new things. There was a food and wine festival in the past at DCA. It went away during some of those renovations, and now it's back, and obviously you and I will be there opening night with some friends checking it out, so you can follow along with us on social media, and I don't know, maybe we'll do a little podcasting too. Yeah,
see if we actually even make it there and what we find once we get there. But yeah, we never did try it when it was there before. I'm not sure why. We just never
didn't catch
did.
Our attention.
But this time we will be there, so hopefully it'll be enjoyable and good.
Yeah, to watch this space for more news as we get closer there. So definitely curious to see what it's like that opening weekend. So, all right, what's up next in the news?
So last week, Knott's Berry Farm announced that the reopening of GhostRider has been delayed. Is it a big deal, or?
Yeah, it is. I guess in a way, I mean, obviously, we'd rather them get it right than rush anything. So it goes without saying that parks need to take the time that they need to take. But I do think it's probably a difficult time for them, especially in marketing of how they promote things, because the target date was May 27th with Ghost Town Alive coming on, which we've talked about on this show before. And, GhostRider is a big part of that. And a lot of people are thinking more about GhostRider than the change of location for Panning for Gold or, Ghost Town Alive or any of that. And, so That said, it's tough. I'm curious to see what they do because I think it's a little bit up in the air now what they do in terms of how they launch their summer season, because obviously the goal would be as you launch everything, as you do a big event where you really highlight Mrs. Knott's reopening, you highlight Panning for Gold, the saloon. I mean, the saloon is already open, but that would be the time that you just launch everything. And now with GhostRider pushback, it'll be interesting to see how that impacts their advertising, their approach to media outlets. Do they have a big media event on May 27th and GhostRider do a separate one for that? I doubt it. That'd probably be just a couple weeks apart, but I think it is a big deal for them. That being said, you know, once we get to June, middle of June, July, once everything's open, nobody's going to care. Everybody's going to enjoy it. The park's going to be packed in the summer either way. So in the end, not a huge deal, but I'm sure it's a pain for the marketing department in particular as they kind of figure out how to brand this entire message. I know every time we're there, lots of the guests of the park are heading straight over to GhostRider because everybody wants to ride GhostRider. I mean, it always has drawn big lines, whether it be the amateur fan or the amateur guests the first time at the park, or it's a vet. They see that giant coaster after they park their car and they want to make their way in there. So, but it'll be done eventually, and in the grand scheme of things, not too big of a deal.
Yeah, I think almost every time I've walked to or from the entrance of Knott's Berry Farm, I've heard a parent explaining to a child that it's closed.
Right.
Of course, on the other hand, almost every time that I've gone by also at Mrs. Knott's, I've had to explain to usually older women who were there for dinner that it's closed and where they can get the food, and that seems to happen almost every time I walk by too.
You've
I don't
become like
know why.
the personal greeter for the closed Mrs. Knott's. It's been funny. There was a group of older women that were there from San Diego that said they drove all the way up for dinner, and you had to break the news to them that it was closed. So, yeah, no, you're right. Is people that are not as much in the loop, that are not going to watch a talk show like this, they're not quite on that same wavelength.
Yeah, so people are disappointed already, and so I guess a little delay on the ride probably isn't going to be too big of a deal in the long run, but people are already disappointed that that's closed. So.
Yeah, so for you guys, I mean, just mark your calendars that to be determined right now. Obviously, we'll share with it. People keep asking when's Mrs. Knott's going to open. We don't have an exact date for that as well. As I said, the Calico Saloon has already reopened. Looks amazing. I mean, it looks really beautiful. All oak bar, all new interior. The sound, all the wiring is hidden. I mean, it looks like an old saloon. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I haven't been able to get there since it opened, but you were there with your mom. I assume you guys appreciated the air conditioning.
Yeah, the air conditioning is great. They're currently doing the same show that they've done, the classic kind of show in there, so not a new show, but just a whole new facility, new food and drink options in there as well.
So there is a new show coming, but probably tied into...
probably so, with the Ghost Town Alive.
Right.
Yeah, so obviously we'll cover that as we get to all those things. So, all right, next.
Cool. So last week, the SeaWorld CEO Joel Manby announced that SeaWorld Parks is gradually going to phase out their orca trick shows over the next few years and beginning to provide, quote, experiences that matter by leveraging a marine life conservation theme instead of thrilling audiences to expertly choreographed play between human trainers and natural killers. And their breeding program is going away. I don't know, what are your thoughts in the new direction of SeaWorld?
Well, it's really tough. I mean, I think the writing's been on the wall for a while there, as SeaWorld has gotten beaten up pretty bad over the last few years, and it's really unfortunate in a lot of ways because SeaWorld has done some amazing work for many years in rehabilitating animals. They probably haven't done a good enough of a job of tooting their own horn, I think, in a lot of the work. I don't think people are fully clear on the extent of what they do in the wild to help these sea creatures.
The rescue aspect.
So obviously Blackfish, started momentum. It gave PETA that extra boost that they needed to make it this big topic, and they've been a whipping boy since then. They've been a real target, and this is probably when the stock keeps dropping. It's constantly, they're fighting off. It's been, they kind of came up like, well, we'll extend the tanks, and it was kind of like, well, the feeling from PETA's side of things and what they've really gotten into the public consciousness is, well, we don't want them in tanks. So bigger tanks are still just tanks, and in the end, SeaWorld has had to really kind of start to change course now, and they're looking at ways. I mean, obviously Manta is opening out in Florida there that they've focused on. They've really tried to focus on different ways. I mean, here in San Diego as well, what they've been doing with trying to integrate other types of entertainment, but at the end, that's a big part of their programming there. So it's sad to see them getting beat up so bad right now, because I hope they don't go away at some point or have to, shutter their doors for, as they reboot things. But at the end of the day, will people come out to SeaWorld if there's more of a ride focus? Yeah, I mean, there's ways to, still train humans about the animals, to build in sensitivity for the kids and try and do some of these great things that they've done in the past in terms of educating the public without the orcas, obviously. I mean, it would be naive of us to say that it's not going to greatly change SeaWorld for the next generation, but at the same time, I think it's also very short-sighted to say that they can't reinvent themselves and be something different, and so at the end of the day, I mean, I know you're the same as I, we are huge animal fans. I mean, we stop anytime we see a stray dog on the streets or we rescue animals all the time. All of our animals are rescues, so we're not wanting animals to be in bad shape at all. At the same time, I think though it's very easy, especially in this age of the internet, to paint things as black or white, and I don't think this is a black or white situation. I think this is a gray situation where there's some good and there's some bad, and there's some changes that need to happen, and I think unfortunately SeaWorld has in a lot of ways gotten painted as a bad thing in a lot of ways, and it's a little short-sighted, and it's a little unfair. It's a lot unfair, actually. And so hopefully what moves they make next will redefine the park and gain goodwill with the public and launch them into a whole new generation, because I know I don't want to see SeaWorld disappear from Southern California. I want to see it become stronger and better and an integral part of education about marine life, and to continue to do their great work while having a fun themed experience.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've had annual passes for SeaWorld years ago, but even when we had them, we really didn't use them all that
Not
often.
much.
San Diego is about an hour and a half from our house?
Hour and a half.
So it's not the easiest place to get to, and I think in my adult life, I've probably only made it out to SeaWorld a handful of times, even before all the bad publicity and stuff. But it was always kind of comforting to know that they were there and they were doing all their work and animals were benefiting. Because despite the negative stuff that's been so highlighted lately, they really do and have done good work to rescue a lot
Every
of
day, yeah.
animals and to take care of them. And it's always just kind of been, I guess, kind of a comfort in the back of my mind that it's there if I wanted to go. So yeah, hopefully it stays. And I'm sure there's got to be a compromise somewhere in there, and it's tough when the public courts, holds an entity guilty without truly a fair trial out there. So as you said, it's gray. I can't imagine that any of it was ever ill-intentioned. I don't think anyone sought out to harm orcas or anything like that. But, that all being said, changes are being made. Hopefully it ends up for the betterment of the animals. And as a company, hopefully they're able to still maintain the good stuff that they've done and are able to tweak out the more negative stuff. But
yeah, I heard Disney insider Jim Hill talking on the Touring Plans podcast the other day just about that. Disney is very worried about this right now, because now that SeaWorld has kind of just said, okay, we give in, and the circuses, which Pete has been really on them about the elephants, they've basically on their own said, okay, we're moving away from that. The target seems very clear to be Animal Kingdom next, and so it's just interesting to see. As you said, I mean, that's a great way to talk about it, really is. At the end of the day, when we're talking about entertainment and the consumption of entertainment, it's all about the court of public opinion. And it's very clear SeaWorld has been found guilty end of story in terms of the court of public opinion. Doesn't matter what's true or not. It matters that people feel like they may feel guilty if they go down there. So now they're just going to head down the street to Legoland or the San Diego Zoo or the Wild Animal Park or whatever. And so it'll be an interesting story to follow. I mean, again, as you said, for us, it's a little bit of a longer distance down there. We don't do Legoland a ton, and we don't cover it anywhere near the way that we cover places like Disney or even Universal Studios, Knott's Berry Farm.
Even the zoo, Wild Animal Park.
Yeah, there's a much greater distance for us, and there's just so much going on in the parks and cons world. It's hard to justify going down there as much. But you know, if SeaWorld has a media event next week to kick off something and they invite us to it, I would definitely go down there because I do want to support them continuing to grow and move into a good direction for the future. So, all right, what's our last news story?
So Legoland is having a hard hat tour for media for their new NINJAGO attraction this coming week. So, are you excited about the addition, and could you maybe elaborate on what that addition is?
Yeah, so Legoland has extended their property there, or I should say extended the entertainment that they're adding to their property there. They're adding an NINJAGO ride to fit in with the very popular NINJAGO. It's a popular building set. It's their own intellectual property, so unlike something like Star Wars or DC or Marvel, they don't have to pay out all these extra licensing fees or things like that. It's just their own property they own, so I'm sure they're excited to integrate that into their park. And they're building really a whole little land around NINJAGO there. So it's taking something that's been really popular with the kids and the families. I've heard nothing but good things about the cartoon. Obviously, you and I have not watched it, but I've heard nothing but good. I've meant to set the DVR a few times to check it out, but we've not. But I'm excited about it. I mean, you know, I think it's you know, sometimes it feels like I keep repeating the same thing on the podcast. I was always a fan of parks doing new things. It's never a mistake to add something. It's never a mistake to try to grow. It's never a mistake to try and offer your guests more. And that's the case here. Is, you know, Legoland's not boosting up the prices or doing something like that. They're trying to add something to make the park a better place. Now, Tryotech is the one coming in to help with this ride, doing a lot with it, which they are the people behind Voyage and Iron Reef at Knott's Berry Farm, which some people love and some people hate. It's definitely a polarizing ride. I think it's really one of the more polarizing things Knott's Berry Farm has done in the last few years. But that being said, that is a ride that always has a line. I mean, the ride's only been there a year, but there hasn't been a time, even on the most dead days, that I've seen it just as a walk-on. There's always at least a 5-minute wait. And there's sometimes we're at Knott's Berry Farm where there's only a few hundred people in the park at the end of a day when they're closing at 6 p.m. So they showed in their press releases and the little video footage and stuff that the NINJAGO ride, whereas Voyage to the Iron Reef, you're shooting things on the screen base, and it's primarily a screen-based media that they're using, but NINJAGO looks like you're actually, like, you know, creating the wind and shooting with your hands and more interacting physically and bringing that in. So at the end of the day, Tryotech is very much a game company that ties into these rides. So I think it'll be fun. Legoland is another park that relies on repeat customers. They're big on their annual pass or season pass holders as well. So I think it'll be a good addition there. And one thing Legoland is really lacking is family rides. You know, unlike a place like Knott's that needed something like Voyage for families because they have so many just adult or teen to adult rides, Legoland's the opposite, where so much is real kiddie rides. You know, as you know, there's only a handful of things there to do as a family, and this will be something to do as a family. So I'm really excited to go out there. We will be out there for the construction tour. So actually, as this show is going up on Thursday, I will have already done the construction tour, but I'm anxious to see what they got going on. What about you?
Yeah, definitely. It's something to add to what's going on there. It's been a while since I've been to Legoland. Again, just because of the distance, it's tough for us to get out there. We have our dogs are indoor dogs, and so if we're ever going for an extended time period, we have to get pet sitters and things. So it's not the easiest thing to just jump in the car and run down there. So yeah, the last few times I've gone to Legoland, it's enjoyable, but for me, it's enjoyable in a couple hours, and then I'm kind of ready to go, whereas you actually spend more time looking at stuff.
All the mini lands, I mean, it's really kind of a museum in a way of all these different Lego mini lands that you can check out, and statues and things like that. But no, you're right, it doesn't feel like a full day park, at least not for adults, you know, maybe for the kids, but no matter how long you take examining the mini lands, there's only a couple rides really to ride. There's a couple shows. And so yeah, this will be something that rides. And again, if you're scoring and you can challenge each other and try to improve your score, and you may want to ride it 5 or 6 times in a day potentially, or you may want to go back week to week if you live close enough to try and, you know, challenge each other's scores. And so
yeah, I definitely think it'll be something great for the families. And I'm thinking of several of our friends who have children, you know, in the elementary school age, and I can imagine that they're going to love that type of ride, and the parents are, you know, competitive too. So
right.
it sounds great all the way around. So I look forward to it and think it's going to be a good addition to the park. I've heard several people who I don't really usually associate with the parks that are kind of more friends from the other part of our lives, and they've talked about the ride and their kids and looking forward to it. So I think it's going to be a great thing.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's move from our park hop over to a segment we call Magnification. And Magnification is where we take an adventure through the space of one specific event, ride, whatever we want to call it that time around. And this week, actually, we're going to do 2 magnifications. So the first one up, though, is the Knott's Berry Farm Boysenberry Festival. So the Boysenberry Festival kicked off on March 19th. It runs through April 3rd. So as you're watching this, you really have your last weekend there to enjoy it. It brought together, or it brings together, a ton of different food options, all boysenberry based. Lots of tasty treats there, whether it be full meals or desserts being a big thing there. And then also some interesting and different programming, vendors, street vendors with all sorts of arts and crafts and things like that. So why don't we take you down to the streets of Calico Ghost Town to check out some highlights from this year's Knott's Berry Farm Boysenberry Festival.
Just move your body, listen to the music, sing oh, yeah, oh. Just move those left feet, go ahead, you're crazy, anyone can do it, sing oh, yeah, oh. Show the world and not a liar, feel the rhythm getting louder, show the world what you can do, prove to them you got the moves. I don't know about you, but I feel better when I'm dancing, yeah, yeah. Better when I'm dancing, yeah, yeah. We can do this together. Makes you feel better when you're dancing.
The next one is Rebecca G.
Is this Clara H?
How many we?
Okay,
1, 2,
Nolan, go
3.
right up here. Go right up here, Nolan, right up on the stage.
This is when people start placing their bets, everyone, so you can start exchanging money or coupons, whatever it is that you
Oh, yes,
do.
this is big time money.
We do Starbucks gift cards.
No, very much so. You got a kickback on those.
Yeah, with the money taped to the back, so
Yes,
that way
okay.
the sheriff doesn't get suspicious. All right, the next one is Amare V. I think I'm
Amara
pronouncing
B,
that right.
Oh my gosh, Amara B.
yes, yes,
Come right,
excellent.
Go right up there, sweetheart.
Boysenberry. Cider.
All right, so hopefully you enjoyed that little look at the Boysenberry Festival there. So to kind of talk about it, I've been there for the tasting and one day on its own. You were only there for the tasting event. So this was a media event where we just got to taste a bunch of the great treats, but you didn't get a chance to check out any of the entertainment. Obviously, you've been there in the past. You know, it's a very small window. You have 16 days, so you've really got 3 weekends in 2 weeks. It's nice. The park's open till 10 every night, which that's moving out of a season. If you've not been to Knott's very often, this is a season as we're in January, February, and then into March where they close at 6 many of the days, and so it's nice to have those extra hours. The programming, it's fun that they build in a lot of extra little things, whether it be the salsa bands at night, the party in the park at night, the Peanuts party in the park in the day, which is a really fun character, you know, interactive kind of thing for the kids and the whole families. Crazy Kirk and the Hillbillies performing daily in the birdcage is really nice. As I said, in addition, you have all those street vendors, which add kind of an extra dimension of stuff. They have great prices and great fun crafty things there that you can buy. Very similar to what they have at Mary Farm, except a little bit smaller scale. And then again, really the star of the season is the Boysenberry and all of the treats. You've got the wine tasting going on over in the Wilderness Dance Hall. You've got treats at all the different stations throughout Ghost Town there. I believe there was like 31 different items this year that you could taste and enjoy. So a really great season, I think. It's amazing the amount of work they put in. We talk about it when we come to like something like Knott's Scary Farm, of all the work they put into something that is only like 6 weeks, and here all the work they put into something not to that same scale, but something that's only there for 16 days, I think is really impressive. And it gives a reason beyond just spring break for everyone to come out to the park, whether you're a pass holder or, you know, a first time out. We've had a lot of people on social media ask us about, you know, is there any way to get to the food without buying a ticket, or are there days where cheaper tickets? Because people want to get in. They see that fun stick, or they see those flautas, or they see the ribs, and they want it. So,
Well, I haven't even mentioned this, but I went to lunch with my parents the other day, and my parents are not theme park fans. My father
No.
especially. I mean, he hasn't been to Disneyland since we were kids, and he pretty much had to go. But they were actually asking me about the Boysenberry Festival and stuff, and I don't think they're going to make it out and by the time it ends. But even my parents, who aren't into that stuff, were even asking about it, which I was surprised by. So
it's great food. I mean, it's really, really great food. It's unique treats, and so much of the food just disappears after that 16 days. So it's interesting because, I mean, some of it stays around. The Fun Bun has reappeared on the weekends and things like that, but a lot of that food is just, it's there and then it's gone. And so it's like either you get there and you get it, or you don't. You know, we've talked on the show about, you know, butterbeer and how great that is, and it's just, you know, interesting to think if that was only there for like 3 weeks or whatever and then it was gone. So it's a really neat idea that Knott has embraced that. I wish that Knott, or maybe they will, but I wish they would embrace Scary Farm historically, beyond just, you know, the scares for high school kids at night, in this type of way where it kind of integrates something into the nature. Because to me, the Boysenberry, fried chicken, and Scary Farm, that's the fabric of Knott's. That's really what's made Knott's what it is in terms of this park that really is more than just a regional park. It's something known
I think I'd
worldwide.
include Ghost Town just in
Yeah,
general.
yeah, definitely. I mean, there's just some elements there, and so it's neat to see them celebrate it in this season. I enjoyed the programming that I got to check out over those days, but I enjoyed the food the most, obviously. And again, I always tell people I'm not a fan of boysenberry, so the fact that I really find foods that I like that are not overwhelming. The panna cotta is so good, and it's because it has a good tasty boysenberry, but it's not overwhelming, it's not too strong, and obviously for anybody there's just some foods that click. I think for you, what, the ribs were your favorite?
They were, and it was...
Same for my mom, the ribs were her favorite as well.
It's basically short ribs on rice with like boysenberry, or jasmine rice with boysenberry barbecue sauce, and Russ, he's the one in charge of
Russ
food
Granick.
and stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, and when he was at the media night, he discussed that they marinate them for I don't know how many hours, and then they like grill them or they warm them up on the grill. I'm not sure how it's cooked or whatever beforehand, because they're really just heated up when they're presenting them to you. But I've been craving that since the media night, and I've not been able to make it out to the park, and it's been bugging me that I have not been able to get over there, because I don't think that item is sticking around after the festival.
I don't think so.
So I really want to get back to the park, and I don't know that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's so busy these last few weeks, but
Right.
I've been craving that quite a bit. So yeah, and the fact that that's kind of appearing with the meat and the rice, it's kind of almost like a mini meal.
Yeah.
Whereas several of the other things are almost more snacks, or you have to pair them with other stuff to make them a full meal. I think it was probably my favorite item as far as real food.
And you know, if you are going to head down, and we highly suggest getting down there this weekend, because it's going to be crazy crowded. So just pack your patience as we talk about with other topics. But if you can get down there, that $25 tasting card, it's not the only option for the foods, because you can buy things individually and it's a little bit bigger portions. But that $25 tasting card is a really great deal. When my mom and I went, we got one of those $25 tasting cards. We had that, and we just shared everything, and we spent $9 on a fun stick, which is a little pricey there, but that was all we spent. We had our season passes, we had our free refillable cups, so we stayed there for 5-6 hours, and we spent a grand total of $9 in that time, outside the $25 thing. But that was enough to share. I mean, it was a lot of entertainment, a lot of great food, and that was two of us splitting that food. You also have the $25 wine tasting card, and that gives you 6 different wines that you can taste, or 6 different drinks. And they also they give you a cheese plate, so you can head over there with your wine, and they'll give you a little cheese plate with some fruit and crackers as well, which is also a good value. I don't drink, but my mom enjoyed the wine. Our other friends that were there for the media day that covered it for us while we were in Silicon Valley, they enjoyed the wine tastings and things like that too. So fun things all the way around there. The one knock I would say on the Boysenberry Festival to me is that their way of conducting the lines for all these mini booths still needs work. You have to, if you have the tasting card, you're fine to get in line at any of the chosen spots, and which is not everything. I mean, the tasting card gets you 6 spots. As I said, there's like over 30 different things you can taste, so that's not going to take care of everything. The fun stick, for example, or the fun bun are not included in the tasting card, so you have to go somewhere else. But if you want to just buy the ribs, or you want to just buy the boysenberry meatballs, you have to go to a different place than the booth where the food's being sold. Wait in that line to get to the front of the line, pay for your boysenberry meatballs, then you have to go back and get in another line to get there. The biggest problem with that, I think, is just each location should ideally sell everything on the boysenberry menu, because in the end, let's say you want the ribs, I want the meatballs. We not only have to go get in 2 different lines to pick up our food, we also have to go get in 2 different lines to pay for our food. So we're basically going to wait 4 times for the 2 meals. And that's just, in terms of the operational standpoints of the Boysenberry Festival, I think that still needs work, because they do a great job of packing the place. People are excited. It's super packed. It would be one thing if it was dead, but when I took my mom there, I mean, it was a Tuesday. Now, granted, it's spring break time, but it was packed and crazy and nuts, and they just need a better way of facilitating the purchases, is having a few spots where you can buy the full menu, even if you have to go to, 10 different stands, of kind of integrating that in a way, because otherwise it gets, you know, really time consuming, and it can be frustrating when it's hot and crowded and you just want to eat your, you know, boysenberry meatballs or panna cotta or whatever it is. But otherwise, besides that, I think high regards for it. From there, we move into the summer season at Knott's. From there, we move into Scary Farm and then Merry Farm, and it just keeps rolling on at Knott's Berry Farm, which makes it a fun park to visit all year long.
Yeah, and the entertainment stuff. I mean, last year the was the one in the park with all the dancing and the characters singing. What is that called?
The Peanuts Party in the Park?
Yes. Last year that was a lot of fun to see the kids, and this year our friends who covered on the media day, their daughter enjoyed all that too,
and they integrated in the Peanuts movie, a bunch of the songs from that, so it kind of has that new flavor to it, which is really cute.
That's cool. And she, our friend's daughter, has a lot of classmates who also were there, and so I guess as a group they were all really enjoying that. So I really hope I'm able to fit that in before it ends, but I'm not sure that's going to happen. But yeah, lots
always
of stuff.
The best value we talk about all the time in the parks these days is Knott's Berry Farm. It's consistent, it's high quality entertainment, high quality food, high quality absurdly clean park, really beautiful, lots of great flowers, you know, things like that. Definitely a good time of year to check it out. And if you can't make it out for the Boysenberry Festival, get out there sometime in May or June as Ghost Town Alive comes, another good time. Be ready for crowds because it's a Southern California theme park in the summer, but great stuff there. So, all right, so normally at this point we would move into our park tips and talk about some tips for navigating the parks and trying to improve your experience there as a guest. But this time we are going to skip that actually, and we're going to add in a second magnification. So we felt two really big topics this week, one being the Boysenberry Festival and the second one being the Walking Dead attraction coming to Universal Studios Hollywood. And so the Walking Dead attraction, this is a year-round haunt maze. It's taking generally where it was the House of Horrors and then many other things prior to that, but it's a brand new building in that new kind of Buena Vista Street-ish area at the front of the park there, but it's going to bring you into the action of AMC's hit TV show The Walking Dead year-round. And so you'll be able to go in and experience animatronic walkers, scare actors, big elaborate scenes, and something on a much larger scale than even what we've seen at Horror Nights, which has been very impressive. I mean, the Walking Dead maze that John Murdy and Chris Williams put together in their team at Horror Nights this last year was really impressive. It was the longest maze they had done. But that said, this being a permanent attraction is going to be even bigger than that. As we're recording this, we are out at WonderCon, and we actually sat through the panel with Chris and John kind of leading and talking about some of the differences there. They didn't give a whole lot of spoilers yet. I mean, one of the things they did talk about is kind of the unique nature of this attraction is you don't really want to spoil haunt things so much, because a big part of haunts and mazes is the surprise factor. And so we did get a few pieces of information. We do know that there's going to be a big queue scene. They called it kind of an Instagram moment where you have the, as they call it, the dead inside, where they have the, you know, the doors with the zombie hands, the hospital doors, the zombie hands reaching out, grabbing, and, you know, do not open, dead inside. So that'll be kind of a fun experience in the queue line. We're obviously big fans of storytelling as early on in the process as possible. It's one of the reasons we love, and everybody loves, Potter. You know, the most impressive cues that you find there at Forbidden Journey. But this is neat that they're going to kind of introduce the story there. They also talked about the idea that they're not focusing on any one season or one episode, that they're really taking the whole of the Walking Dead TV show and integrating different components of it, big scenes, iconic walkers from throughout the seasons, and kind of bringing that in, and kind of sounds like a little bit of a best of, you know, in a lot of ways. And they talked in the panel about just some of their favorite moments over the years, as they've had a great relationship with Greg Nicotero and the AMC cast as they've implemented Walking Dead in the park and these great haunts, but also how different that is from a, you know, temporary attraction that they put up for a few months in a tent to something in a building built for this attraction. They did mention that they're going to have the burning cabin scene, and they talked a lot about that technology there. They didn't allow us to record any of the actual video of the effects or things like that, but one of the really cool things that we did get to see is this technology they use that this company has put together that basically uses like a fog and light to create very realistic looking flames, and so I'm anxious to see that. We also heard that Greg Nicotero's involved. They're using all of his molds. If you're not familiar, he does all of the effects makeup, or is the mastermind behind the effects makeup to bring these walkers to undead life on the screen, but his company is actually putting together the animatronics, and so you're going to have that kind of level of quality, so it should really feel like you're walking through an episode of AMC's The Walking Dead while you're in there in the park. So what are your thoughts on this attraction?
I'm still not overly excited about the attraction that it's coming. I mean, it's cool that it's coming and it'll give us something else to do while we're at Universal Studios, but my excitement's kind of tempered at this point. But Halloween Horror Nights is always a great event in regards to the mazes, and that it's like you're truly walking through these sets of these movies, and this is going to be that amplified. And so I imagine it's going to be great, great visuals, great to experience, great to go through. So I'm kind of interested to see how it develops, and I'm also kind of curious how many times we are going to go through once it's established in there. I mean, obviously in the beginning, I'm sure we'll go all the time or as much as possible, depending on how lines are and stuff once it opens. But then beyond that, I imagine though it's something that we'll still go through like every time we go there, as long as the wait isn't horrible. They didn't announce the opening date yet.
No, just summer 2016.
Right, so we'll see when in summer that happens, but yeah, it has a lot of potential, and I'm kind of interested to see how it develops. And of course, John Murdy, and Chris Williams. I don't know why I always struggle with names, but they're always very passionate. Dan Burgess, is that the Don Burgess? Didn't speak so much. It was mostly John speaking during most of the panel, but the input he had was promising too. All three of them seem to have a lot of history with the park and with Horror Nights, and I can't imagine that they're going to put together anything that's less than extraordinary.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing, if you've not been to Horror Nights before, because there's going to be people that visit this Walking Dead year-round attraction that maybe haven't been to Horror Nights before, that they're interested in Walking Dead, or they're interested in facets of this immersive entertainment, but maybe not interested specifically in Halloween type events or things like that. Is Horror Nights, to me, the most important thing to know about it is it's all about walking through movie scenes, as you said, or TV scenes in the case of Walking Dead, as these are the most accurate film pieces that you'll ever get to walk through. So, Michael Myers' house last year for Halloween, it was like we were walking through the movie set. I remember going through that kitchen, and it was like, this is right out of the movie. I mean, just the detail for every little piece of it. And this is going to be that to another degree, because it is a year-round attraction in a permanent spot.
Yeah, they said there's going to be Easter eggs everywhere from the show.
I believe it.
And of course, I mean, they said there's going to be names on walls or doors and things, and if you look closely, you're familiar with the property, you're going to get it. So I guess that alone would warrant that we're going to warrant the time to go through many times, so that we can kind of catch all those things. And I think he said he estimates it'll probably be a 5 to 7 minute event, depending on a person. Obviously, it's a walkthrough, so if you're sprinting through, it's going to be 2 minutes. But we'll usually go through those things as slowly as possible to take in as much as possible.
Right.
So.
Well, and obviously what's really exciting about this, beyond, let's just pretend we didn't like haunts, because we have friends that aren't interested in mazes, they don't like to be scared, and that's a very possible thing there. But if we just look at this commitment to taking that park from a half-day experience to a full-day experience to a multiple-day experience to adding in these intellectual properties, as we look at the last few years there of the addition of Transformers, Minions, Fast and the Furious, Simpsons to a whole nother level that really beats anything Florida has when you look at what they did with Springfield. Obviously, Wizarding World of Harry Potter, nothing bigger than that. And now The Walking Dead is they're taking all of these beloved franchises, this beloved intellectual property for different targets. I mean, the Minion audience is very different than the Walking Dead audience and the Potter audience, but it's really something for everyone, and that's what they're building there. And that's why we talked about it in the last episode as we talked about Potter. I mean, we have a lot of friends that are visiting Universal Studios Hollywood for the first time right now because of Potter, but this trajectory that they're on, it's just going to continue more and more, which is really exciting. And a nice thing about a haunt too is it is a people eater, and we see it, and it's tough at things like Halloween Horror Nights or Not Scary Farm, because some of those lines can be an hour, 2 hours, because it's different in the pacing. You have to pulse things. You let 5 to 10 people, however they're going to do it, in at a time. Then they give them a little bit of layer, because if you just have one big conga line, the scares kind of get reduced there. But it should eat people up. It should bring a lot of people in there. The studio tour is going to eat people up in there as well. Potter obviously is going to eat people up and have, so it gives people a lot of different areas to be in the park, and I think it's just a really fun and exciting time at Universal Studios Hollywood. I'm really excited that we are on this end of things to cover their events, because it's just, you're kind of waiting for what's the next thing that's coming. We know they have now Nintendo. They're opening, they've already talked about what's going to happen there with Japan a little bit and what's going to go potentially in Florida. We know exciting things are coming, and Walking Dead is just another piece of that puzzle. But that commitment, I mean, I don't know where else right now you have a year-round haunt experience like that. So it's really doubling down on what they do with Horror Nights. And then most of all, maybe what's cool as a Halloween fan, if maybe that was your only area of interest, is now you know Walking Dead's going to be there. It's in a permanent location. That frees up Horror Nights' budget for other things, whether it's more shows, other types of mazes. It's neat that that's one maze just kind of put on the shelf and permanently there every year. And maybe they spice things up or change it a little bit each year for the seasons. I'm sure not this first year, but that could be something to kind of update it for the show or whatever. But it's really exciting just to know that it's going to be there and it's something we can count on. And again, this very, very solid commitment to their fans to give them something new, not just once a year, but right now multiple times a year is expecting these things. I mean, in the last year, think about this, in the last year, we've gotten Springfield, Fast and the Furious, Potter, and now Walking Dead in 1 year and change. That's phenomenal. That's something that you don't see in parks at all. And we have it right here in Southern California, which is really cool. I mean, we always talk about how spoiled we are with the access we have to parks and cons out here.
Yeah, definitely. And we were able to record that entire panel. We weren't able to, as Sean said, record the screens at all. But if you do want to see the panelists and talking through the panel, that should be up any day now. I'll get it up as soon as I can.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's the easiest way. We ran into lots of viewers at WonderCon, and one of the ones, whoever, I'm sure you're watching this, so it was nice to meet you, but it was very cool because he said that he came across us for, I think it was WonderCon, visual guy maybe, but he subscribed because he listened to our talk show on WonderCon, and then he said he saw all these videos about like Knott's Berry Farm and Universal and Disneyland and stuff, and he's like, I'm into all this stuff. So definitely subscribe and you will see all of the Walking Dead goodness and Universal Studios and all of that type of stuff. So all right, so I think it's about time to wrap up this this episode of Park Talk. Thank you very much for tuning in. Why don't you tell the good people where they can find you?
Okay, well, I help monitor all the social media, which is parks and cons, pretty much across the board. But if you want to reach me directly on Twitter, I'm at Connoisseur, which is CON_NOISSEUR. Or you can reach me directly through email at carmel@parksandcons.com.
And you can always find me on the social media platforms as well under Parks and Cons, and you can find me individually at the Confluence at the_con_Florida. confluence. If you're interested in Con Talk, also tune in to this channel. Again, subscribe, and you can check out every other week. We alternate, so we have Park Talk and Convention Talk, and so we bounce back and forth. And this WonderCon panel with Universal Studios, and we saw lots of Potter stuff actually at the con this weekend too. It's just really, that's the world we live in now. It's why we started the site years ago, as we see this intersection is just kind of more and more grooving together. So definitely check that out so we can let you know about all those things as well. If you're interested in more in-depth talk about parks or conventions, check out iTunes or Stitcher, where we have Parks and Cons. We have 130 some episodes up there of all sorts of in-depth conversation about what's going on at the park at that moment, or at the convention floor at that moment, and go into much more detail there. Please help support the show by subscribing to our channel. As I said, the more people that subscribe, the more access it gives us to things, the more media lists it puts us on, the more exposure, the more good, to be honest. So please help us. Additionally, please spread the word. Tell your friends about us. Introduce them to our YouTube channel, podcast, whatever it might be. I'm sure we have something there that they may be interested in. You can find us on social media, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Periscope, all of them at Parks and Cons, and that's really where we take you to the heart of the action in real time, and we tweet up a storm, and Facebook a storm, and Instagram a storm, and Periscope a storm there in all those areas. So, all right, so we're going to wrap up here for another episode of Park Talk. Until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.